It looks pretty comfortable. And pretty gross.
Are you kidding me?
Lucky for you, they put enough preservatives in this stuff to last for centuries. There's enough food in here to keep us going for a long time.
Oh, check it out. This is actual honest-to-God pudding!
Seriously?
I knew you weren't alone. Fucking knew it.
If you're all by your lonesome, now how come these are all open?
You can't just take what you like.
I don't roll over like that.
I ate all those. Yeah, me.
You? By yourself? Now,
Yeah, what can I say? I fucking love pudding.
You got a real smart mouth. You fucking watch what you say.
Hi and good day to everyone, it's Peti again, and today I'm doing a review of The Walking Dead New Frontier, the third season of the critically acclaimed narrative-driven adventure game series. I'm going to review the game through the tetrad of game design, a concept I got introduced to in Jesse Shell's fabulous book called The Art of Game Design, A Book of Lenses. It establishes four main elements of a video game: mechanics, story, aesthetics and technology, and how the game uses these to create an experience. But first, let's talk a little bit about Telltale in general. I've been calling myself a Telltale fan since I laughed my ass off at their first ever Sam & Max episode, Culture Shock, way back in 2006. I've also been a fan of the old point-and-click genre since my early childhood, playing the games like Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, Siberia, The Longest Journey, or the Broken Sword series, among others. So at first I was a bit skeptical about the Walking Dead game. I wasn't into neither the comics nor the TV show, and seeing that it's not even a proper point-and-click adventure, but something that was previously clumsy, buggy, and not too successful in their Jurassic Park title, I wasn't too keen on it. But then I gave it a chance around episode 4, and it completely blew me away. It was possibly my biggest gaming surprise since the brilliance of Beyond Good and Evil. I consider Clementine the best written child character today, and it's one of the main reasons it was so successful. They took a big risk and it paid off for them big time.
Whoa. Katja says Mabel could have her baby tonight.
We'll see, Clementine.
What's this thing?
Daddy said it's called a salt lick.
Yeah, but don't lick it. It's gross.
Did you lick it?
I don't know.
So, as a long-time Telltale fan, I can say that I actually enjoyed New Frontier more than I disliked its shortcomings. However, I'm getting real tired of their formula. Without further ado, let's begin actually looking at the game. So, how does this game fare? Telltale games were prone to bugs, lag, and general wonkiness over the years, especially on console. They have their own engine, which they've been using since forever, always polishing it, upgrading it, or as the cynical people like to say, always trying to fix it as it's broken. I don't personally think that. They are still a relatively small company compared to the big AAA teams, and having their own engineering tools can help a great deal. They are still prone to overcommitting themselves with too many projects, so having a familiar toolkit is essential. Now we can argue about whether or not they should focus on making less and different content, but right now this is what they're passionate about. And for the New Frontier, they use the newest version of the engine first seen in their Batman series. which has actually improved a lot, especially on lighting related effects. They might not have the animation technology and manpower like Naughty Dog, and the animations can still look a bit wonky, but I do think those and their graphics have hugely improved overall. Especially considering how far they've come technology-wise on these narrative games since Jurassic Park. And playing on a fairly good PC, I never really experienced bugs, just a few frame rate drops that could be annoying, but it didn't bother me personally. Reading through the forums, some did have worse experiences than me, so I think it still depends on the platform you play on. Oh, and I could play it on a PC with an Xbox 360 controller, the game supported it, which is nice. Telltale games have always been famous for their cartoonish graphical style, and I mean that positively. It helped them a great deal making awesome environments and characters with a limited budget and a unique visual style. A New Frontier still retains the comic book look, the characters still have black outlines, the textures still aren't photorealistic looking as well, but with their new lighting effects and their environmental and character design, I can honestly say that this game looks absolutely gorgeous. From the town, built into a former airstrip with fuselage parts used as buildings and atmospheric cantinas with retro arcade game machines, to the abandoned streets of Richmond or a crashed helicopter over a crumbled highway, the environments enhance the experience for me and tell stories of their own. The only gripe I have with these environments is that a lot of them felt underutilized. That's my biggest gripe of this whole season, and I will elaborate on this further down.
You okay?
Oh my, fuck that! Seriously? Fuck you, helicopter.
Lighting is smartly used to create tense moments, emotional high points, and I must commend the people who designed it. It's such a powerful tool to use to enhance the player's experience. Life is Strange was groundbreaking in this regard for a lower budgeted 3D game, and it warms my heart that Telltale is also using lighting this way. I also feel like a lot of effort has been put into designing the characters. Most of the important human ones look unique, giving them personality and, well, character. Clementine is arguably the best of all. As this game takes place years after the last season, seeing how they have successfully captured her look growing up warms my heart. She looks fierce but adorable at the same time. She looks like an evolution of her early childhood looks. I think she even looks a bit older than 13, but I can let that slide as the zombie apocalypse forces you to grow up faster. For the other characters, the shady guy looks shady, the overly masculine brother character looks aggressively macho, and your charming main character looks positively dashing. I must say, they even went a bit overboard with how good looking everyone is in this apocalyptic world. The character you're supposed to be tempted to fall in love with looks immaculately attractive. Some might be distracted by this.
Damn, it's good to have you back. Look at this family. Look at my wife. Isn't she the most beautiful woman alive?
Come on. With the lights off, you could mistake me for a walker.
A damn fine walker.
Why is it always the pretty ones who end up causing the most trouble? As if good looks equal bad behavior or something. I've never understood it.
Are you calling me pretty?
I was talking about Eli, the dead guy.
Oh, yeah, good. Because I prefer dashing. Or debonair, maybe.
Yeah, I'll try to keep that in mind.
And they finally made more handgun models. But then on the other hand, there's Jane and Kenny, and even Edith. Yeah, I will talk about them in the story section. I just wanted to state that yes, I'm aware of how much they screwed them up. The voice acting in this game is also top-notch, just like in every other Telltale game. From Melissa Hutchinson to Gareth Vakarian, Brendan Keener. I must also talk about the most important part of the aesthetic for me, the music. Music often gets overlooked, so it's my personal mission to cast more light onto it. Telltale once again went for Jared Emerson Johnson, their trusty composer, who I think has scored almost all Telltale games since their very first one, Minecraft Story Mode being an exception. I really enjoy these kinds of long-lasting relationships, just like Spielberg and John Williams, Tim Burton and Danny Elfman, or Doctor Who and Murray Gold, to name a few. For this series, Emerson Johnson went with a more atmospheric, less melodic score with limited orchestration. There is one clear character theme, and it's for Clementine, and the majority of the score can be put into emotional categories. Exactly what the audiophile names do if you extract them. And they play accordingly, completed with the occasional set piece, piece. The interesting mix of low synth bass rhythms, pumping, plus light percussions for tension or action, under chamber strings, harp, and sometimes guitar lines create a unique and almost always disturbing milieu, perfectly fit for the mood of this game. It's never in the foreground, apart from a few moments, and there are some recurring tracks from previous seasons, but it nevertheless plays a big part in creating the proper emotional state for the players. I would have preferred more character material, some nice brass, and maybe more highlights, but that just comes from my passionate love towards leitmotifs and brass. This is an interesting beast to tackle here, because in these modern Telltale games, the player's interaction with the narrative is the major mechanic of the game. The goal most of the time is literally to get from one plot point to another, mostly by tailoring your character in 4 time-limited dialogue choices per line, and sometimes a wallet silence option, or quick time events even. You can navigate these easily with a mouse or a controller. There isn't much else to talk about mechanically, apart from light puzzles and a few unfortunately limited hub sections where you can move around, interact and talk to others, but they're even more limited and minimalistic than they were in Season 1. And that's a shame, as those quiet character building heavy sections were pivotal in establishing emotional connections in Season 1. So here, the engagement of the player mostly depends on the actual story and how your choices seem to shape these events, characters, and you. But unfortunately, you can't control how much you will know about someone, so that caused a lot of them being underused or completely forgotten. That hurt the emotional attachment for a lot of us, and all these tied directly into story can be everything from the written narrative to your own imagined experiences playing a game. But in recent Telltale games, the written story is everything. And I can sum up a New Frontier story in 2 words: missed opportunities. I promise I won't spoil too much of the journey, as frankly, that is the real point of the game, experiencing the story through the dialogue options and quick time events, and I still think it's a worthy experience to have, but barely. So, the most important thing right at the start is that the main character is not Clementine, the poster child of Telltale. She has become such a beloved character over the years that now she can be considered among the most loved in the whole franchise, including the TV show and the comics. In my opinion, it was down to the realistic writing and awesome voice acting, coupled with the fatherly dynamics with Lee in the first season.
You didn't accidentally break a flashlight, did you?
No. Did Duck say I did?
No. Did Duck break the flashlight?
I don't think so. He's just always blaming me for stuff.
Like what?
Putting a bug on his pillow?
Did you do that?
Yes.
Season 2 then established her more, so it was time for us to see her grow up. Which we did, but not in the way we expected. Not yet, at least. So instead, in A New Frontier, her gameplay segments are limited to 1 flashback scene per episode. This was suspected by me and a lot of others the moment they had started talking about this being a great starting point for new players, which always sets an alarm bit in my microprocessor ever since Mass Effect 3 abandoning much of the second game's characters. The other odd thing was that Season 3 was removed from most advertisings, and even from the game's actual Steam page. So maybe the devs concluded that this is, or should be, a completely separate, almost spin-off season. Now this was unsurprisingly disappointing for everyone caring mostly about Clementine. My personal opinion is that it would have been better if they would have said it's going to be a spin-off season from the get-go, that focuses on a new character, so the oldest fans would have had time to adjust expectations. So this new main character is a Hispanic ex-professional baseball player called Javier, whose gambling problems had resulted in the end of his career, and to be honest with you, I freaking loved him. He proved to me that Telltale is still great at creating interesting characters, at least for me. He is caring, charming, he has that slight cockiness and arrogance to him akin to a professional sports player, which you can play into if you want. And his relationship with his family, competing with his macho brother and all that, felt honest and genuine to me. I was glad we got to know him. But this is also the tricky part. You don't really play yourself as an avatar. That would be unrealistic. You play Javier's character to your liking. So you can't just kill off or glass someone because they irritate you. This tailored storytelling term Telltale had coined is pretty misleading. It would take bonkers amount of money, time or manpower to actually develop an even branching story. And even just a two-thread story like The Witcher 2 isn't really beneficial. Those plot points can easily lose focus. Well, not in The Witcher 2, but that's The Witcher. And the average episode lengths are already too short. So by now, nobody should really expect real choices in a Telltale game, and should adjust expectations by that. I still enjoy this kind of formulaic storytelling, even the limited tailoring adds a sense of ownership to Javi and to the plot that enhances the experience for me. But I understand how someone would already be bored by it. And for them, no matter how loud Telltale shouts, "Enhance!" it won't help.
Hey, what's up with that map?
Computer, enhance!
Enhance.
Enhance! Enhance! Enhance computer images!
Stop it! This is not how computers work! Where are you from? You don't just yell enhance at the screen?
Well, that's obvious.
The actual plot revolves around Javier wanting to do the best for his family. Right at the beginning, in a flashback, we find out that he was neglecting his family, not being there, so when the apocalypse starts and he's stuck with his niece, nephew and his sister-in-law, he's forced to step up. Unfortunately, we don't actually see that process. We jump 5 years into the apocalypse, with them being on the road pretty much ever since. This feels a bit like a time jump, only to justify a more grown-up Clem. This is where the narrative can be a bit dissonant, but if you just accept the 5 years, it's not that big of a deal. I thoroughly enjoyed the opening character building events, these quiet moments, like the car ride, with the small fun choices, like smoking a joint or refusing it, is a great way to build connections. There should have been more of these, way more, and I mean way more. We get to know another major character here, Kate, the sister-in-law who was in an unhappy marriage with the overly aggressive older brother David, but who's also desperately in love with Javier. As you can guess, this will drive most of the dramatic tension of the season, apart from the zombie-related plots. I won't say more. You should play the game and form your own opinion of her and the situation. You can't really form a proper opinion by a few sentences from a random Hungarian guy. I personally liked Kate enough, and her motivations seemed realistic and justified. My only gripe is that they want you to believe that nothing has happened between them in 5 years in an apocalyptic situation, just constant flirting and teasing. Maybe because of the kids. Speaking of them, your own enjoyment will also depend greatly on what you will think about the teenage kids, who are the stepchildren of Kate.
He's a teenager. Puberty, hormones. Oh yeah, the second you start getting boners, the whole world starts to get dark.
What are you talking about? Sounds delightful compared to dealing with bloody underwear.
Christ. I need to get laid. I realize that was an awkward transition. Sorry about that.
Oh, I can pull over. It wouldn't take a minute.
Wouldn't be worth it for just a minute.
What's that smell?
Then there's also Clementine, who's back as a loner, badass, swearing, trigger-happy Clem, and what a sight to behold. She's even more of a tour de force here, despite being relegated to a sidekick position and having her own story separate from Javi's, but interlocking enough to warrant her place here. It's so nice to see her almost grown up, and they actually did her justice. She's getting mature, she knows how to survive. You can even say she's wise. But then there are moments her tough exterior cracks and you realize that she still is an only 13-year-old girl just starting puberty, and I think they tackled her with grace, care and thought. If nothing else comes from this season, a season 4 with her has my hopes up.
Muertos. The herd caught up with us.
Muertos.
What do you call them?
Walkers.
What do you call the ones that run?
They're all fucking walkers, okay? Look, I'm not used to being around other people.
It's one thing that most choices involving her are predictably one-sided, and that most of the fans play Javi, not really as Javi, but as Lee's spirit still looking out for her. But the way they introduce and integrate her into the plot of the season is, I'm gonna be blunt here, it's shit. For those who don't know, in season 2 you played as Clem and there were 6 hugely different endings, which was a novel thing to do at the time, but the writers had written themselves into a very difficult situation for a possible sequel. I read somewhere that there were also changes in personnel within the writing team, and they basically went with the easy solution, putting Clem back into the plot the same way, no matter what your personal ending was, by only doing small aesthetic changes to her looks depending on a few short flashback scenes. And those flashback scenes, oh boy. For some, they single-handedly ruined the whole series going onwards, because they felt utterly lazy, like the devs had just wanted to get them over with, and they felt hugely disrespectful to established characters like Kenny or Jane, whose 3D models at release looked even worse than something out of Sam and Max's first season. That beard made me sad, but kudos to them that since then they have actually fixed it. If you did not like season 2, or these characters in the first place, or if you're a newcomer, or simply if you can forgive them for taking the easy route with their new writers and vision and just move on, then there are a lot to love here in the story. There is the first proper determinant character in Telltale history, there are fun, genuine side moments, and one of the better cameos from the comics with awesome performances from the main cast. Why do I say that it's a missed opportunity then? Because it's too short, and those big choices do feel too formulaic. The whole season goes by in a blink, and you're left with wanting more, with more diverse options than some twists on the choose this person over that person mechanic. You want the interesting henchman character not to disappear after episode 3. You want even more quiet moments with the group. I personally wanted a lot more of Ava or Trip, etc. Then there are the now usual Telltale rewrites between episodes. Tales from the Borderlands was heavily Then there are the now usual Telltale rewrites between episodes. Tales from the Borderlands was heavily rewritten between episodes 1 and 2, and it became my favorite game from them. So it's not inherently a bad practice, but here I would have loved more waiting for more actual content. I did enjoy this season a lot, but even I am at my limit. I won't be as forgiving next time, and someone who's potentially watching this has maybe already had enough of their episode structure and storytelling practices. They have so much more potential than an enjoyable, but in a lot of ways irritating season of 1 hour long episodes. I do feel they should rework their whole workflow and the way they tackle too much projects at the same time. So, to summarize all this is a modern Telltale game. That means a bunch of positive and a bunch of negative. I'm not going to give it a number, as I don't find those a good way to rate a video game. Too much variable from genre to genre, too much munition for personal attacks. So I'll just say that you should buy a New Frontier if you don't have much free time and you want short playing sessions with interesting characters, great environments, atmospheric music, and you don't mind Telltale's formula. Or if it's on sale and you're still somewhat interested. I must say that reading the Telltale forums, those who do not like the game usually hate it with a passion. The internet loves to hyperbole, yeah. So keep that in mind. What I had personally enjoyed about the writing of the game, others had found the worst words ever to put in a video game. There's always a subjective part to it. With the announcement of a final season of The Walking Dead with Clem, and finally a season 2 of The Wolf Among Us, I'm cautiously optimistic and still looking forward to purchasing them day one. For some closing words, have a nice day, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I see you in the next one.